Hey guys, welcome to the channel. As you see in the thumbnail, what if Naruto was Ramen guy and married Ayame? Before I start, please do support for more awesome content and subscribe my channel and like this video. Go support and follow the Naw-Roo-Toe for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. Let's start this video. Yada, lunchtime. An excited 13-year-old blonde-haired shouted shinobi as he jumped from rooftop to rooftop with great speed. Ichiraku Ramen, here I come. The blonde shouted once more with a giant leap. Miso, beef, chicken, and shrimp. Yosh, I'll order them all. The blonde began counting out loud, causing passing pedestrians to give strange looks towards the young man. Though he didn't care, he just was excited to have his ramen. All those D-ranked missions really paid off. I've made a ton of spending money this time. Reaching into his pocket, the young man pulled out an oddly shaped frog wallet and happily tossed it in his hand, simply to hear the clacking sounds of his commissions. A few moments and rooftops later, a large smile grew onto the young man's face. Ah. I can see it. Tuchi-Aji-san. With another giant leap, the young man amazingly jumped over an entire building. Shouting in adrenaline, the young man laughed and somehow safely landed onto the ground in front of what seemed to be a normal stand, a ramen stand to be exact. Ah, after all those days of working on D-ranked missions, I can finally nani. The blonde suddenly stopped mid-sentence as a certain sign caught his attention. In an instant, the blonde began reading the sign a bit carefully. Beginning the first Saturday of July, the Ichiraku ramen stand will be closed till the week after. We are extremely sorry for the trouble. There was no need for the man to continue reading as he took the sign and entered the ramen stand. Boy. Tuchi-Aji-san. The man burst through the curtains of the ramen stand and once again called out for the old man. Shimada. No need to scream, damn it. Came a swift reply from the back of the ramen stand, followed by an annoyed groan. Not long after, a man suddenly walked out from the back of the ramen stand. From his attire, one who think this man would be the head chef. And would be right. What's the problem now? Oh, it's only you, Naruto-kun. Replied the man, who at first held an annoyed expression but soon transformed into a smile after learning the source of the yelling. I was beginning to worry that you'd stop eating her. Tuchi-Aji-san. What in the name of Kami is the meaning of this sign? Interrupted the blonde, now known as Naruto, as frantically shoved the sign into the old man's face. Gucci smiled and slightly laughed as he read his own sign. Ah, yes, I had a feeling you'd come to me about that. Well? Why are you closing the stand for a week? Asked the blonde. Gucci smiled and scratched the back of his head. To be honest, both Ayame and I are going to visit our family back home. So we'll be closing down the stand during our visit. Nani, for an entire week? A deflated look quickly overcame Naruto upon hearing the announcement. Why didn't I hear about something as important as this? He continued. The old ramen chef's face faltered. It's not that important, it's only a week after all. But a week is like 7 entire days. That's almost 8 days. Tucci sighed once more after hearing the blonde's stupidity, but chuckled a bit after. Yes, Naruto-kun, 7 is very close to 8. He said in a very sarcastic manner. You know, I would have told you about this, but you stopped showing up for a while. But I was busy with missions. Retorted the blonde container. Kuzo, at least I got much more to spend than usual. A smile formed as Naruto reached into his pocket and tossed his frog-shaped wallet in his hands. Gucci smiled at the young boy. Ah, whatever, hurry up and give me your order. Just because I'm a good person, everything you order is half price. Yada. Arigato, Tuchi-Aji-san. I'll start with 5 miso ramen. Naruto happily shouted and quickly took a seat. With extra miso. Hi, coming right up. The old man replied while turning back towards the back of the stand. Naruto waited anxiously for his ramen. This was something he hated the most, along with a certain Uchiha, but that wasn't the point right now. Kuzo. Only a minute passed. An annoyed sigh escaped his mouth as he laid his head on the table in silence. Though the silence did not last long as the sound of giggling entered the ears of Naruto. I see that you still are a bit impatient when it comes to ramen, ne? Naruto-kun. Naruto slowly raised his head to find the source of the voice, only to find a familiar smiling face. Ayame-chan. A large smile appeared as his face in return to the young woman's smile. Ayame's smile only grew at the sight of seeing her little blonde friend. Her long cinnamon brown hair was neatly tied into a pony and held back with a typical white chef's cloth. She wore her usual work uniform apron, along with Konoha's average civilian attire that seemed to be in fashion at the moment. Heyo, Naruto-kun, I haven't seen you around here in a while. Asked a 16-year-old female waitress. Placing her 2 elbows onto the counter and held her head up with both hands, her smile never seemed to fade. Naruto scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and grinned in a foxy-like manner. Well, I've been busy with some missions along with training, but thanks to the extra missions I can buy a lot more ramen today. Naruto enjoyed talking with the ramen waitress. She was someone he could always talk to about anything. The thought of talking to AM because of her beauty didn't cross Naruto's mind, ever. Seriously, it didn't, but that didn't mean Naruto didn't know AM was attractive. He just saw her as a close friend he could talk to, and the thought of becoming something more also have never crossed his little adolescent mind. I did miss seeing you around here. It's been kind of lonely having no one to talk to. AM said, feeling a bit embarrassed. I like talking to my Otu-chan, but it's different compared to talking with friends. She let out a tiny sigh and continued. Plus, having so many boys come over and flirt with me is kind of annoying after a while. Naruto chuckled a bit. He knew all about AM's boy problems, who often talks about how annoying they all are. He somewhat enjoyed counting how many times she rejected a boy, along with what unique way she rejected them in. You can look at it this way, at least you know that others think you are very pretty. A faint tint of red burned Naruto's embarrassed cheeks. Naruto still wasn't used to complimenting AM like that, but it was true, she is very attractive. AM's smile grew ever more from his words, but soon changed into an annoyed expression. That's sweet. Arigato Naruto-kun, but to be honest, I would rather have people come here to eat instead of just coming here to look at me. AM simply released a tiny sigh which held a hint of depression. I come here for a few reasons, besides the fact that I love ramen, of course. Naruto announced. This somewhat caught the young ramen waitress's curiosity. Oh really? What other reasons do you come here for then? Is it because you secretly want to flirt with me? She grinned teasingly. Naruto embarrassingly blushed as he raised his arms to form an X formation across his body and face. And no, that's not it. Actually, kind of close to it. I don't come here to flirt, I come here because I enjoy talking to you and all. AM blinked surprisingly. Really, I didn't think you enjoyed talking with me that much. She smiled slightly before continuing. After all, I'm just a ramen waitress. To think a shinobi would find talking to a civilian that interesting. Her smile slowly began to change into one of sadness. Suddenly, Naruto slammed both hands onto the counter, successfully startling his female friend. That's not true. Boy. Don't slam my counters. Instantly, a shout from the back was heard. Hi, gomen nasai Tuchi Aji-san. Apologized Naruto while his sweat dropped, but quickly turned his attention back to AM. As I was saying, AM-chan, I really do enjoy talking with you. Other people usually ignore me or don't really care. Heruka sensei, Aba-chan, Shizune-chan, and Kakashi sensei all are busy with their jobs, along with Hiro-senin, who is pretty much busy peeking. Naruto sighed with his voice calming down while he continued. Sakura-chan isn't someone who I can open up to, along with Hinata-chan who is kind of weird, besides them I don't know the rest of the rookie 9 enough to really open up to them. AM stared at the blonde silently. Naruto depressingly chuckled. Ashimata, I began trying to cheer you up and ended up depressing myself. Naruto sighed. It's going to be pretty lonely for a while. At least it's only for a week, a long week. Thought Naruto. AM smiled slightly. It's alright Naruto, you somewhat did cheer me up a little. But now I feel kind of bad about leaving for a week. I didn't think I was that important. She inwardly frowned. But still, I'm sorry AM-chan. Naruto put on a strong front and smiled happily, or better put as happy as he could at the moment. I said it's alright, just forget about it. Let's talk about something happier, after all I want to at least have my last conversation with you for a week to be a happy one. AM replied, who also held a smile similar to Naruto. Hi, so AM-chan, how many boys did you turn down this time? Asked a slightly chuckling Naruto. Before AM could answer, a bell sounded off along with Tuchi yelling. 5 bowls of miso. Ah, your order Naruto-kun. I'll be right back. Pivoting on one foot, AM gently picked up each bowl of miso one by one and placed them in front of Naruto, who at the moment began to drool at the simple sight of each bowl. Taking a big whiff of the heavenly scent of miso ramen. Usually Naruto would instantly dig in at the moment, but he decided to hold off a bit. Arigato AM-chan, Tuchi Aji-san. Itadakimatsu. Shouted Naruto as he took his chopsticks and dug in happily. AM could only smile at the blonde. Arigatai. Naruto continued to eat until he suddenly stopped. Nah, AM-chan, exactly what day is it? Friday, we leave tomorrow, why? Naruto nearly got a heart attack. Nani Friday. There isn't a second to waste. Oi. Tuchi Aji-san, 50 bowls of half shrimp ramen and other half of chicken. Come on. Shouted the panicking blonde who changed from eating semi-properly to the eating at an alarming rate. AM could only sweat drop, but soon laughed as she began to help her father, all while talking to the hungry blonde who at the moment had finished his second bowl. Dozens and dozens of bowls later. Woo. That was great. Naruto sighed in a satisfied manner along with an equally satisfied smile. Today the ramen tasted extremely good, a lot better than usual. He continued while rubbing his own bloated stomach. AM could only giggle at the blonde's antics. Naruto-kun seems so innocent at times, especially after eating a bowl of ramen to his satisfaction. A sudden aching rumble erupted in the belly of Naruto. A slight yet sharp feeling painfully entered the belly of Naruto. Ugh, my stomach. The blonde groaned painfully and clutched his stomach before continuing on. I think I actually ate too fast. Or maybe you ate too much. Tucci appeared, casually walking from the back. Naruto gave a slight glare at the ramen chef through the pane. There is no such thing as too much ramen, oh my stomach, Shimada. Naruto gripped his belly once more and laid his head down onto the counter. AM gave a gentle smile and walked around the counter to Naruto's side. Oh well, just rest your stomach for now. Rest here a bit. She added and gently rubbed Naruto's back soothingly. Naruto slowly raised his head along with allowing another groan to escape. Erg, it still hurts. He rubbed his belly and slowly looked down at it. I feel pregnant, ugh, said Naruto just moments before slamming his head back onto the counter. Upon hearing the blonde's latest words, the two ramen stand workers could only sweat drop. I think you're overreacting now, Naruto-kun. AM weakly smiled. The old man could only chuckle. It's AM-chan's fault that I'm pregnant, she's taking responsibility. Naruto's muffled voice added from the counter. A sudden faint pink blush appeared from embarrassment on the ramen waitress's face. Really now, Naruto-kun. Gucci's chuckle returned, but this time turned into a small laughing fit. Oh no, AM-chan, you better take responsibility. A grin appeared onto the old man's face, which in return got a hit on the head by a magical shoujo hammer from an irritated yet embarrassed AM. The chuckle's sudden escaped Naruto's lips. His face seemed to show a bit of recovery from the stomachache. Ah, Tucci Aji-san, you alright over there? Hi. Bled. The old man replied weakly before passing out from the lumps that mysteriously appeared on his head. AM sighed and began to drag her father to the back. Come on, Otu-san, we have to finish up packing our things a bit. She smiled towards Naruto once more. Goma, Naruto-kun, but it's already kind of late and we still need to finish packing. Well, Otu-san here does. So. Bye. AM's smile suddenly turned into a sad one for just a moment as she dragged her father to the back. Naruto smiled and waved at them as he left. Bye, AM-chan, Tucci Aji-san. Have a nice trip, and when you guys get back I'll order triple my usual amount. With that said, Naruto officially left the stand and began his walk home. The sun was beginning to set as Naruto continued walking. Normally he'd be home in no time, after all he's a shinobi, but even the greatest shinobi fall from stomachaches. I should have became a medic nin. Then I wouldn't have this problem. He grumbled through his thoughts. Ai. A scream echoed through Naruto's ears and snapped him out of his rant. Stop it. Help. The moment he heard the word help, Naruto sprung into action and jumped from rooftop to rooftop towards the scream. Yes, his stomach is aching like a bitch, and yes, a toilet would be nice for Naruto right about now. Humming a nameless song happily to herself, a young girl would be seen cleaning and organizing her room. The young female looked no older than 14 years old. Her peachy shoulder-length hair held a healthy shine as it made contact with the sun's rays. Along with her just as healthy creamy skin just added to her wonderful youth. Her face held a feel of innocence that matched her tiny lips and ruby red eyes. At the moment she wore a simple long-sleeved shirt and matching skirt that covered her slightly petite form. Almost done, just need to organize these books here and put a few junks away, then I'll be done. The girl thought out loud before continuing to hum. A few more minutes passed and a content sigh escaped the girl's lips. Yada, finally finished. Picking up a random trinket, an amused eyebrow raised. I've got too many junks in here. Maybe I should throw some stuff away now. Nah, I'll do it later. Tossing her trinket to the side, she swaggered her way out of her room and down the stairs. Soon after reaching the bottom of the stairs, she came upon the sight of a middle-aged man, placing a few pictures around. A smile came across the girl's lips. Aheyo, Sanji-chan. Sanji turned to the girl and sighed. Heruka, why don't you just call me Otu-chan like any normal girl? I am your father after all. Hi, but it's boring to call you that. It's a lot more fun to call you by your name. Heruka said with a cheeky smirk and a hand on her waist. Walking over to one of the chairs and taking a seat, Heruka looked at her surroundings. She noticed that the room was decorated with a bit of pictures, a simple furniture. Heruka wasn't a big furniture person, but she did admire the simplicity of the furniture, then she got over it. I've been in my room all day, I need a breath of fresh air. She said while getting up and stretched her legs. Sanji-chan, I'll be going for a walk and check out our new stand. The peach-haired female announced while walking towards the door. Just be careful. Don't wander too far, you don't know the area and you could find yourself in deep trouble. Her father warily said as a placed a photo on an end table. And try not to get distracted when reading these instructions I gave you. Be sure to always know where you are on that map. I.e. don't worry about me so much. I can handle myself. Heruka lazily replied and walked out. Sanji looked at her and sighed a bit. That daughter of ours, she's such a handful. He paused and looked at the photo he had just placed. She reminds me of you. A small smile formed on his lips. But, you were much more of a handful to handle. At that moment, Sanji began to chuckle and turned around. Sadly, his pinky toe collided with the coffee table. In an instant he dropped back on the couch and whimpered in pain. Gomen, you weren't that much of a handful. Sanji let out a chuckle as he felt the pain lessen. It's just like you to hurt me when I tease you, you kept me in line and gave me a few bruises. Soon the pain withered away and happy smile grew. And I still loved you anyway, even to this day. His gaze turned towards the photo. The photo was a simple picture of a 3-person family. One looked like a younger Sanji, beside him was a woman who had a lot of features like Heruka, and on the woman's lap was a little girl looking no older than 5. All 3 smiled widely and happily in the photo, as if there was nothing more needed to make them happy. Their life seemed perfect, and this photo seemed to have captured it. Engraved at the bottom of the frame of the picture were the words, Hirosaka family. Streets of Konoha. Wow, Konoha is a lot busier than what I had thought. Heruka exclaimed to herself. Walking down the crowded streets, the young female civilian curiously looked at her surroundings. Her face was filled with amazement as she continued her stroll down the streets. Maybe I should check out Sanji-chan's and my new stand. Reaching into her pocket, Heruka pulled out a piece of paper and unfolded it. She quickly began to study its contents. Let's see, it should be a few streets from here. Nodding towards herself in a confident manner, Heruka began her trek towards her destination. As she made her way, Heruka noticed the many different stands in the area. Each stand verified from each other and sold many different goods and trinkets, but most of them sold food. A tiny confident smirk appeared. Looks like there's a bit of competition for Sanji-chan's stand. As a few moments passed, Heruka somewhat studied the different stands and shops Konoha's shopping district had to offer. For such a big village, I've yet to come across another ramen stand. Heruka gave her hair a slight flick and carried on. Whatever, makes business easier for Sanji-chan and I. Keep 'em coming, Tsuchi-Aji-chan. Time is not on our side. A shout entered her ears and caught her attention. Her head turned towards the direction of the shout and found the source. It came from a young blonde-haired boy dressed in an orange jumpsuit who at the moment began to eat his ramen. So there is another ramen stand around here. Maybe I'll go check it out. She could not finish her sentence as she saw the blonde messily and rudely downed his bowl of ramen. You. Disgusting. Forget about going there. She had to suppress a light stomachache from the sight of blonde's eating display. I'll have to try and avoid that blonde customer in the future. With that said, Heruka walked off and continued her search for her stand. A few moments later. The sun was already beginning to set and Heruka had yet been able to locate her destination. Where is it? Is it invisible or something? An annoyed Heruka shouted her frustrated lungs out and gripped her hair. She looked at her paper and began to reread the directions. Alrighty then. I took a turn here and walked down the main street of the market district. She rubbed her chin as she read the directions aloud to herself. Then past the smug mark. She ended as if she was asking a question. What was this smug mark? Heruka intently stared at the smug, studying its figure and overall trying to figure out what the hell it was. It looks like some kind of stand, she said as she narrowed her eyes. There looks like there is another smug beside the first smug. Probably the name of the stand or something. The young civilian girl continued to study the second smug. The more she stared at it, the more she was able to just barely understand what the smug said. It looks like a bowl of ramen. There was a sudden click in her mind. There is only one ramen stand in this area. It has got to be that ramen stand I saw earlier. It just has to be it. Heruka announced proudly with a triumphant smirk as she crossed her arms and head nodding, happy from being able to solve the mysterious smug. Then was a second click in her mind. Wait a minute. Her voice echoed. Her hands gripped a sheet of paper and glared the smug marks. I've been walking around trying to find my stand and it ends up all the way back there. I've wasted so much time. Heruka released a loud frustrated groan. During the heat of the moment, she stared at the smug mark. She once again let out a frustrated groan, although this time it was much quieter. In an act of frustration, Heruka ripped the paper to shreds and threw the remains into the wind. Die, you stupid piece of paper. Stupid remnants of a tree. She shouted, her breath was a bit heavy from the shouting, but all in all she was just simply overreacting. I'd usually never make simply direction mistakes like this. Something must have taken my attention around that area. She placed a finger on her chin and began to remember what had happened back at the ramen stand. Flashback. Keep 'em coming, Tsuchi-Aji-chan. Time is not on our side. A shout entered her ears and caught her attention. Her head turned towards the direction of the shout and found the source. It came from a young blonde-haired boy dressed in an orange jumpsuit who at the moment began to eat his ramen. Hey. So there is another ramen stand around here. Maybe I'll go check it out. Flashback end. That blonde-haired pig. His disgusting eating habits were so bad that I just wanted to get away from the area as soon as possible, that I didn't notice that I already was in the vicinity of my stand. She shouted again, this time using big words like vicinity habits and along with putting the blame on others. Whatever, I'll get revenge for this some other time. Maybe he'll be a customer, that's when I'll get my revenge. She plotted against our blonde fox child, even if he had actually done nothing wrong. I'll just go home, and Heruka took a step but stopped midway as she noticed something. Oh no. Would I rip the directions? It was the only thing that could show me the way home. Panicked Heruka. In an instant, Heruka let out a forced giggle in hopes of keeping her morale up. No biggie, I can make my way home easily. She looked at her surroundings and found that it seemed darker than usual, along with the nightfall approaching faster. Okay, maybe not that easy, but I'll find my way home nonetheless. Her voice contained a slight hint of courage, but anyone could easily tell she was afraid. Taking a deep breath then releasing it a few seconds later, Heruka began her way back home. I'll just try and retrace my steps. Eventually I'll find something familiar. With that, she began walking. Simply walking, in a direction her intuition told her, not knowing if it was right or wrong, but to her she thought it was right. Lower class area of KONOHA 1. Heruka felt rather uncomfortable at the moment. The streets were dirty and seemed empty. But it was just the weird atmosphere that just flowed with the "you're not alone" feeling. The homes looked to be in horrible shape along with everything else. The young civilian girl forced herself to hold in a gulp of fear. She didn't anticipate ending up in a situation like this. Heruka was terrified, she knew that, but she kept a strong outer front and refused to fully accept her fear. Just stay calm. This is just a slight detour I accidentally took. Any moment I'll find my way to a safe and much more comfortable area. She chanted to herself as she walked on. Her face looked strong as she was used to keeping her facial expressions under control. Ought to hold my fear in and keep a strong outer appearance. Heruka huffed and pushed her fear as far back into her mind as she could. Just ignore everything and in no time I lay hhhh. A sudden crash echoed through the dark streets, scaring the young girl. In fear of the unknown, Heruka frantically sprinted forward, her eyes tightly shut with a small amount of tears forming at the edge of them. Kai. She let out another terrified screech. After a few meters of running, she found herself in a dark alley. The alley held a foul stench that churned Heruka's inner stomach. She had to refrain herself from blowing her chunks onto the floor. Finally, after forcing down a swallow, Heruka's stomach calmed down to a point where it felt comfortable enough for her to take action. In a quick fashion, Heruka turned and began to walk out of the disgusting alley, only to bump into something, or more like someone. Oh? Look what we have here. What's a girl like you doing here all alone? A gruff-looking man announced as he perversely eyed Heruka. He held both her shoulders tightly with his hands. A sickening grin suddenly appeared as he continued to stare at Heruka, as if he was undressing her with his eyes. Heruka stood there in fear. She did not like the way he stared at her one bit, but not want to show her weak side, Heruka once again put up a strong front in an attempt to defend herself. It's none of your business. Let go of me and leave me alone. She ordered as her slightly watery eyes met the man's. Aw, come on, don't be like that. The man's face suddenly seemed closer. The man's grin widened as his face closely stared at Heruka's. Heruka could smell the strong scent of sake from the man's breath. She instantly drew her face back in order to create some distance from both the man's face and his disgusting odor. I said leave me alone. I'm fine. She ordered once again. In an instant, Heruka broke free of the drunken man's grip and took a few steps away from the man. The man's face suddenly changed to one of anger. Hey. He shouted, which caused Heruka to flinch from his sudden outburst. All I did was try to help you and be nice to you so we could have a good time. The man continued on. His drunken rage began to get the better of him. Heruka took another step backwards. Her fear began to slowly show with a few tears that began to form. Then I'm sorry. I just want to be left alone. I don't need any help, especially from a drunken bastard like you. She exploded a bit but quickly quieted down after. You little bitch. Come here. The man suddenly lunged forward and tightly grabbed one of Heruka's wrist, which earned him a loud screech that echoed through the alley. Shut up. I tried to be nice, but I'll just take what I want. The man licked his lips and smiled insanely. Oh, we are going to have so much fun. Ai. Heruka shouted once more as she tried to break from the man's grasp. Let me go. Let me go. She pleaded and violently continued to break free. Don't worry, I'll let you go when I'm done. He let out an evil laugh as his hand slowly reached for her breast. Hot tears began to flow out of her eyes. She was terrified and felt sick of what was about to happen to her. He could feel his hand drawing closer to her body. Someone. Help. Hey. What the hell are you doing, damn it? A sudden voice entered, surprising both the man and Heruka enough to stop. The man turned his head out of anger and searched for the source of the voice. Wherever you are, mind your own damn business. This is between me and this bitch of a girl. The man roared out, his eyes still looking around for the source of sound. Up here. Now why don't you let the girl go and I won't kick your ass so hard. The moment the man heard this announcement, his eyes shot up above him. There stood a young preteen with wild blonde hair that spiked all over his head. Both the man and Heruka could see the teen's cerulean orbs called eyes, along with his slightly tanned skin just enough through the darkness. But what stood out the most was the male teen's choice of clothing, an orange jumpsuit and a polished yet slightly beat up Konoha headband. It's you. The demon brat. The man announced with venom. It's the disgusting pig I saw at the other ramen stand. Heruka thought as she remembered the boy. Now as I said, let her go already. Or else I'll have to kick your ass so hard that even a Biki would feel sorry for you. Said the so-called demon brat, or better known to us fans as Uzumaki Naruto. The young blonde genin smirked confidently as he pointed at the drunken man. The drunken man pushed Heruka away to the ground and turned his attention towards Naruto. He smirked also in return. You're just a genin. Even a civilian like me could beat you. And after I kill you and become a hero, he turned his gaze towards the fearful female on the ground. I'm going to have some fun with her. Heruka fearfully wrapped her own arms around her body. She shivered slightly at the thought of the man's words. Naruto noticed how uncomfortable the civilian girl felt. Hey. Stop saying weird things and scaring the girl already. The man's smirk only wider as he continued on. Oh. Well, I bet she can't wait for when I forcefully tear her cloths off so I can stare at her young body, her untouched virgin body. I can't wait to have my hands touching every inch of her body, exploring her as if she was my own property. Then I'll. Gritting his teeth, Naruto began to get angry at the man's words. He hated people like him. He hated hearing about people being forced upon by others, especially those from Konoha. If he was going to be Hokage, he was going to have to stop these crimes, and this was no different. Shut your mouth, you drunken bastard. That's it. I'm going to lay the Naruto-mate smack down on your ass. As if a brat like you, his statement was cut short by a sudden impact that collided with the man's jaw caused from none other than a certain blonde's fist. A sickening snap was heard along with another fist that violent impacted with the man's jaw. Just because I'm a brat and a genin doesn't mean I can't beat a drunk like you. Naruto announced confidently as he watched the man's body fall to the ground, but quickly, well as quick as a drunken man could, got back up. Blood dripped from the drunk's mouth. An angry expression appeared as he blindly charged for our blonde hero. Die, you stupid little ga. The man was once again interrupted mid-sentence, this time by a kick that was planted in his stomach. The man coughed as he gasped for air. Saliva mixed with blood dripped from his mouth as he continued to cough. Normally I wouldn't even think about hurting an innocent civilian, but I can't say you don't deserve it. Naruto said in a sort of cool manner, but was suddenly cut short by a sudden rumble in his stomach. Arg, my stomach still hurts. I'd better finish this quick before I ruin my pants. He quietly said to himself. You're lucky I don't have time to give you a proper Naruto-mate ass kicking right now. Naruto pointed his finger towards the beaten man as he smirked. But, I guess this will have to do for now. Without warning, Naruto drew his leg back and suddenly swung it forward. Directly into the crotch of the drunk. Like any other man with balls, the drunk fell to the ground quivering in pain. Naruto watched on, pleased with the outcome of his destruction. At that moment, his trademark foxy grin appeared. How does it feel to be the first to experience my newest technique? Naruto paused in a weak attempt to create suspense. The great Naruto-mate style. Shattered dreams no jutsu. The man only groaned painfully as a response before going silent. Oh, maybe I hit his balls a bit too hard back there. Nah, he'll be fine, I hope. Naruto chuckled slightly at himself as his mind quickly began to worry a bit. Ah. The girl, I forgot about her. His attention quickly changed towards the girl. Slowly and carefully, Naruto walked towards Heruka. He smiled slightly at her as she knelt down towards her and looked at her in the eyes. Hey, are you alright? You're not hurt too bad, are you? He asked a bit worriedly for the girl's well-being. Heruka stared at her blonde-haired savior for a moment. She felt a warm aura coming from the boy, along with a safe feeling just by looking into the blue pupils of his. She took the time to study the boy's face a bit. She noticed a few whisker-like birthmarks that ran across his cheeks. It sort of gave him a bit of a cute animalistic feel. Answer me please. I'm just worried about what that drunk did to you, he asked the peach-haired female. This time his eyes stared at her a bit more intently. I'm fine. I'm just a little startled by the entire thing. Heruka suddenly answered back. Her voice was weak from shock but still able to talk. At that moment, Heruka slowly stood up but dropped down and thankfully caught by Naruto, who by chance was just in front of her at just the right spot. "Ah, are you OK?" Naruto asked but slowed down by the end of his sentence. He felt the girl began to cry on his shoulder. This complete stranger who he had never met before and had just saved a few moments ago was crying on him. Not knowing what to do in this situation, Naruto simply rubbed her back in an attempt to soothe her. It'll be fine, alright. I'll protect you and get you home safely." Heruka's cries slowly began to wither into one of a simple soft whimper. "Thank you" was all she was able to say before passing out on the spot. Hey, wake up. How am I supposed to get you home when you can't tell me where you live?" he asked her, but sighed. He gently carried her bridal style as he quickly and easily jumped onto a rooftop. "I can't leave her here, I guess I'll have to bring her home for now and wait for her to wake up." But those words said, Naruto gave a large leap and lunged over towards another building towards his house. He would soon begin to regret taking that action. "Oh no. I can feel it leaking. I got to get home as fast as I can," he quickly thought as he felt his stomach ache more and more. It was a sad sight. After such a cool entrance and saving a beautiful girl, it all had to be ruined by a simple toilet problem. The drunk may have gotten a devastating blow towards his jewels, but Naruto's toilet was going to get the worst of it all. A full-scale attack of the Naruto style. Liquid diarrhea no jutsu. It was the early morning of Konoha. The sun shined brightly throughout the seemingly cloudless skies and hit the roofs of the many buildings located in Konoha. The normally busy village was just about to pick up. The streets were slowly beginning to crowd with many villagers and shinobi beginning their daily jobs and such. Yes sir. It was just another normal day in Konoha, well as normal as a village full of shinobi a constant war with other villages can get. But that's not the point. This chapter begins in ghetto part of Konoha, where a sleeping young teen laid comfortably in a single bed. Heruka slept peacefully in the single bed. Her short peachy colored hair laid spread across her pillow. A small pleased smile was plastered on her lips as she continued her slumber. But her slumber would soon be quickly disrupted by the strong rays of the sun that began to peek through a nearby window. The bright rays of the sun slowly began to creep its way towards the girl's face. It was only a matter of time until the light made contact with her sleeping face. As the rays continued to assault her eyes, a groan escaped her lips as a sign of irritation from the sudden wave of brightness hitting her eyes. "Stupid. Son," came a groggily and annoyed voice of Heruka as she instinctively covered her face with a blanket in an attempt to return to dreamland. At that very moment an unfamiliar scent came from the blanket entered her nose. Why does my blanket smell like Ramen?" She slowly opens her eyes from under the covers. This isn't my blanket." In a flash Heruka shot up from under the covers and sat up in the unfamiliar bed she found herself in. "Where the hell am I?" Her eyes began to scan her surroundings. The first thing she took notice would be how run down the room she currently was in, along with the small size of the apartment. The next thing she noticed would be the lack of furniture that would usually fill a room with. This place is a dump. How can someone live under these? Is that a kitchen in the same room? She shouted inwardly, all while taking notice of odd layout of the bedroom or kitchen, or whatever it you'd call it. "This place is disgusting," she announced to herself as she quickly hopped out of bed. "I've got to get out of oof." Her thoughts were interrupted by her foot being stubbed by something that laid beside the bed. This caused her to fall forward and land on whatever she had tripped on. "Ow. What the heck did I trip on?" Heruka grumpily asked while trying to regain her composure and at the same time attempting to find out what did she trip on. She quickly got her answer at the very moment she reopened her eyes. "It's him." The peachy-haired girl gasped as her eyes found out what she tripped on, or better put, who she tripped on. It was none other than her blonde-haired savior from last night, the one and only Uzumaki Naruto. Her mind suddenly began to overflow with memories of last night. Her eyes stared at the blonde-haired child as she studied his sleeping features. "He was the person who saved me. He's like my age." Heruka quickly covered her mouth as she didn't want to wake up the sleeping boy. It was obvious that this boy was a very heavy sleeper, and the fact that he had slept through a full impact of someone falling onto him was proof enough, but Heruka didn't want to take a chance as she took notice of the position she found herself in. The warm embarrassed blush crept up her face. This was the closest she'd ever been with a boy besides her father, but that was different. This was with another boy who wasn't her dad and who seemed to be nowhere close to being related to her. "I've spent enough time wasting time here. I should get home as soon as possible. Sanji-chan must very worry about me." Slowly and carefully, Heruka pushed her off of her blonde-haired savior. As she was almost in the clear, a sudden memory came back into her mind. It was the memory of the awful and disgusting picture of that Ramen devouring you. "It's him. That Ramen pig that I saw the other day. That disgusting Ramen piggy." She shouted and attempted to leap away from the young boy. Unfortunately she was unable to as a surge of pain entered her left hand. Heruka instantly winced at the pain. How'd I get this? She asked herself as she stared at her bandaged hand. Her eyes widened as she began to remember last night's episode. You've got to be kidding me. Heruka paused for a moment and switched her gaze between the sleeping blonde and her bandaged hand. That person who saved me last night. Was. The Ramen pig. Heruka continued out loud. I'll think about this later, right now I've got to get home. She instantly stopped as she noticed two blue orbs gazing upon her, coming from none other than the blonde-haired boy that she had been laying upon for a while. Naruto blinked as he had just awoken from his slumber, only to find this cute peachy-haired girl lying on top of him. Heruka herself could only silently stare back at Naruto's eyes in shock of being caught in such a position. A small smile formed on Naruto's face as he broke the silence. Yo. Had a good night's sleep. He casually announced while not taking notice of their current position. Why yes. Thank you for saving me last night. Heruka stuttered slightly from the unexpected greeting. No, not to be rude or anything, but Naruto asked slowly. Could you please get off of me? Heruka blushed out of embarrassment. Yes, I'm sorry. Thanks, you were getting kind of heavy and I was beginning to have a little trouble breathing. Naruto laughed a bit, not knowing that he had just insulted the young girl. But he would soon find out. What? Heruka shouted as his face became even redder than last time. Though this time it was a mixture of embarrassment and anger of what she had just heard. Baka. Are you calling me fat, you Ramen pig? She screeched loudly, in a similar fashion to a certain pink-haired Kunoichi. Hey. Who are you calling a Ramen pig? Shouted the blonde-haired teen. All I wanted was to continue breathing easily. Is that so hard to do? Naruto retorted with a blank expression. No, but you didn't have to call me fat. Heruka shouted in return. I'm not fat. I'm a healthy young woman. I do daily exercises and I am constantly moving while I work, thank you very much. HMPH. Heruka finished as she took breath from her short rant. Naruto could only sigh as he released his hands from his ears that he had began to cover from the shouts of the girl before him. Kami and they say I'm loud. He muttered to himself, but unluckily for him it was loud enough for Heruka to catch. The said girl frowned and her face once again flushed red from a bit of anger and embarrassment. I am not loud. She shouted once more. Although this time her voice may have echoed. Naruto released his hands from his ears once again and sighed. Fine, sorry for calling you fat. I didn't mean to make fun of you or anything. Heruka looked at him in silence for a few minutes. I guess he really didn't mean to call me fat. I mean he seems like a good guy. He did save me after all, even if he is a disgusting Ramen pig. The young peachy colored girl came to a conclusion of forgiving the young blonde. It's alright. You didn't mean it, I guess. She sheepishly answered. Now that settled, a familiar foxy smile appeared on the blonde's face as he slowly stood up and raised his left arm up. My name's Uzumaki Naruto, your future Hokage. He announced towards her with all the pride he had in him and punched the air above. Heruka watched his antics and giggled a bit before giving her introduction. Hirosaka Heruka. It's nice to meet you, Naruto-san. She bowed her head slightly as a sign of politeness. The frown suddenly appeared on Naruto's face as he heard Heruka call him Naruto-san. Nah, drop the san suffix. It feels weird, alright Heruka-chan. Naruto's frown would disappear as suddenly as it appeared as it was replaced with another one of his foxy grins. At that moment, Heruka was visibly taken back by the sudden use of a familiar suffix by someone she had just met. Although she quickly shrugged it off seeing she had saved her. Ah. How could I forget? Baka 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 Heruka. After a second of berating herself, Heruka quickly regained her composure. Oh no, Naruto-kun? She asked slowed, feeling a bit unsure of using such a new suffix on someone. Especially on a boy who she had just met no less. Tilting his head to the side, Naruto questioningly answered back. Hi. Arigato for saving me last night, also for taking care of my wound, and along with sheltering for the night. Heruka embarrassingly smiled and scratched the back of her head in a similar fashion of a certain fox boy that we all know. Naruto's grin grew wider as he heard the praise he had gotten. Sure, he didn't help others for any praises, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't enjoy getting them. No problem. If I'm going to be Hokage, I should get used to protecting everyone, and why should I wait until I become Hokage? I should protect everyone at any time, it's good practice for when I become the Rakudame. Naruto finished enthusiastically. His eyes beamed with anticipation of one day achieving his goal. A small giggle escaped from the lips of Heruka. I wish you luck on that, and arigato once again. Naruto chuckled until his stomach released a large and heavy growl. He's sorry, I guess I'm getting kind of hungry. Heruka giggled once more, unable to hold it in. It's alright, I guess I'm feeling a bit hungry also. Ha. Alright, how about some ramen to start the day off? Naruto exclaimed excitingly. It was always a thrill for Naruto with the simple thought of having ramen for any meal. Heruka, on the other hand, face had faltered. As the memory of the seeing her blonde savior absolutely devour ramen so wildly and violently returned. Oh Kami. I have to watch him eat ramen up close. Her thoughts were interrupted as she thought of the word ramen. Ga. Sanji-chan. No. It's Naruto. Naw-Roo-Toe. Corrected the blonde, thinking the female before was talking about him. Come on, it's not that hard to remember. I know who you are, but Sanji-chan is my O2-chan. He must be really worried about me. Heruka replied with her voice becoming softer as she went on. I've got to get home as fast as I can. Heruka began to quickly walk towards the exit of the single-roomed house. Sorry Naruto-kun, I got to get home so I can't eat some breakfast with you. Maybe next time though. Naruto smiled understandingly and opened the door for her. It's alright Heruka-chan. I understand, but let me help you one more time. Nani? What do you? She would not be able to finish her question as Naruto suddenly picked her up and leaped out the door with Heruka in his arms. Kiai. What are you doing? Put me down. I'm afraid of heights. Screamed the young female teen. Hearing this, Naruto stopped on a rooftop and looked at Heruka in his arms. Gomen, I didn't know you were afraid of heights. But if you tell me where you live I can get you there faster. This way you can see your O2-chan. Naruto grinned foxily once more, which was actually a habit now, but hey, it suits him. Thinking for a moment, Heruka noticed that he was right. You're right. Arigato. Let's see. Heruka looked around the area, double-checking if there were any familiar places. Ah. Over there, my house is just north of the shopping district. Pointed Heruka in the direction. Hi. With a leap, Naruto began jumping from rooftop to rooftop towards the northern shopping district, with a civilian girl holding absolutely clinging to him tightly. Kuzo. Last night I used up all the toilet paper from that little toilet episode 1 head. I better remember to get some toilet paper on my way back, thought Naruto, as he remembered the burning feeling his behind had endured from the full force of the Naruto-mate style. Liquid diarrhea no jutsu. So Heruka-chan, tell me about yourself. Naruto suddenly asked the girl in his arms as he jumped from building to building towards their destination. Heruka was taken back a bit by the sudden question. There wasn't anything personal that she would want to really hide, it was just the fact that he'd asked a question out of nowhere. Well, what would you want to know? The fox container frowned a bit and thought for a moment. Gomen, I don't really know, he replied with a small embarrassed foxy grin, before suddenly thinking of something. Now how about your likes, dislikes and dream? He exclaimed happily from the thought of being able to think of something. That sounds pretty easy, but you have to tell me about yourself also. To be honest, Heruka wasn't really interested in getting to know our blonde hero, thanks to a memory of him eating some ramen. Gah. Just when I was able to forget the image, it reappears out of nowhere. Heruka looked up towards the boy carrying her and scanned his face for a moment. His looks aren't anything special. Besides those weird whisker marks and his bright jumpsuit, he doesn't really stand out. She inwardly voiced her opinion of his appearance. Oh what the heck, he did save me and he doesn't seem such a bad guy. All I have to do is avoid him when he's eating any ramen. Let's see here. You already know, but my name is Hirosaka Heruka, age 13. I guess I like cooking, my O2-chan, who I personally call him by his name. Sanji-chan, and my late mother. By this point, Heruka suddenly got silent. Gomen. Sorry about making say something like that to a complete stranger. Naruto quickly apologized for making his female companion talk about her late mother, along with thinking the silence that followed was her small mourning for her mother. Heruka suddenly snapped from her silence from the sound of his voice. Oh, it's alright. I wasn't getting all wishy-washy or anything. I just couldn't think of any dislikes at the moment. The young ramen waitress gave a small reassuring nod before continuing with her introduction. I don't really have a lot of dislikes, well, besides people who lack in table manners, she gave Naruto a secretive glance. Although Naruto failed to catch the glance, he somehow was able to feel she might be talking about him. Could she be talking about me? Nah, couldn't be, we just met. He chuckled a bit before returning to his thoughts. Plus, it's not like I eat that messy, right? Oh Naruto, if you only knew. My dream, Okami, I guess it's to have a family I don't really know. Sorry, apologized Heruka, feeling embarrassed about not being able to answer some of the questions directly. A small fox-like smile appeared on Naruto's lips. Actually, that sort of dream is fine. There isn't anything wrong with wanting to have a family, is there? I'm pretty sure no one wants to end up alone forever, right? Naruto responded, assuring. Hi, that's right. Heruka couldn't help but smile at his response. I was right, he doesn't seem so bad. I guess I could at least try to be friends with him. Heruka gave a mental nod to herself and decided that he seemed alright in her book. How about you, Naruto-kun? Why don't you tell me about your likes, dislikes, and whatnot? The smile once again ran across Naruto's face as he heard that. He couldn't but smile at the thought of being able to make a friend out of Heruka. Okay then. Naruto exclaimed with great enthusiasm. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. I like ramen, pranks, training, ramen, Ayame-chan, ramen, Tuchi-Aji-san, ramen and eating ramen. A sweat drop formed on Heruka's head as she heard Naruto's list of enjoyments. Judging from his speech, I can see that he doesn't like ramen, he absolutely adores it. Thankfully for her, she was able to quickly regain her composure. You said 2 names, and one of them sounded like a girl's. Ayame-chan was it? She curiously asked. Hi, that's her name, he replied with a nod. She's been sort of like a childhood friend to me and one of the 2 people that introduced me to Kami's gift to the world, ramen. Naruto finished with a bit of happiness, along with some memories shared between the Ichiraku waitress and him. Heruka blinked a few times out of stupidity and sweat dropped once again. What's with this guy? Okay, he loves ramen, I know that. But does he have some kind of ramen fetish also? Heruka inwardly sighed to herself. So this Ayame girl that both of you been friends, so you were children. Do you know like her? Heruka grinned slightly out of excitement for seeing a reaction to her very subtle teasing. Of course I like Ayame-chan. He stated as if it was nothing. We've been friends since like forever. She is someone I can go to and talk about anything. Quickly exclaimed Naruto, whose lips were adorned with a happy-go-lucky smile. I even like her Otu-chan, Tuchi-Aji-chan. He is the second person to introduce me to ramen. He's like the guardian I never had. Naruto's smile shifted into a smaller and quiet form. It's only been a day and I already miss them and their ramen. Heruka's face then faltered from hearing the fox boy's answer. No, I'm not talking about that kind of like. Naruto tilted his head to the side out of confusion. Not that kind of like. He said both to himself and Heruka before pausing for a second. What other kind of like do you mean? I mean. Like, Naruto-kun. As in the same kind of love you have for ramen. Explained Heruka, feeling a bit irritated. Naruto's eyebrows then scrunched up as entered one of his rare thinking modes. The same kind of love that I have for ramen. He paused for a moment. I like Ayame-chan, but I don't want to eat her. He finished, still oblivious to the fact that both he and Heruka have been talking about 2 different sorts of likes. Ah, never mind Baka. Heruka said that last part softly. She released a sigh while looking at her surroundings. How much far Kaya? After witnessing the nauseating height that they appeared to be followed by sudden scream, Heruka tightened her arms around Naruto's neck out of fear. Why you Baka? She fearfully closed her eyes. I told you I'm afraid of heights. Naruto on the other hand failed to notice as he had long forgotten how high they were and was unconsciously jumping from roofs that could be considered more than a few stories high. The scream had taken our hero by surprise and slightly caused him to lose balance. Ah. Kuzo. The blonde swore. Thankfully for the both of them, Naruto was a ninja. Something so trivial like gravity, falling, and the rock-hard ground is far from life-threatening when you're in the hands of the orange dream machine, Uzumaki Naruto hopefully. Quickly reacting, Naruto placed a single foot on one of the walls and pushed off it to slow down his fall. He continued his little shinobi ability until he gently landed on the ground. Sadly there was both good news and bad news. The good news is that Heruka is safe, but the bad news is that Ichiraku is still closed for the week. Okay, that wasn't it, but it's still bad news. The real bad news was the petite girl in Naruto's arms, who still seemed afraid from detour he had accidentally taken. Blinking for a moment before turning his gaze down towards the peach-haired girl in his arm, Naruto gently called out to her in a sort of childish manner. Heruka Chaaan. Babaka. Shouted Heruka with both arms wrapped tightly, very tightly around Naruto's neck. Both her eyes were just as tightly shut with a faint bit of tears forming in the corner of her eyes. Naruto Baka. I told you I was afraid of heights. Her voice echoed this time, causing many passing by to look in curiosity of what was all the commotion about. Heruka-chan. He called out to her again. His voice was a bit raspy from the tight vice grip that she continued to hold around his neck. Heru-ka-chan. He called out once more. His face slightly turned red from the lack of air. Unfortunately for our hero, Heruka refused to let go, not that she actually knew that she was choking him. Urusai. I won't answer you until we are safely on the ground. Heruka stubbornly retorted. Air. Kami, I need air. Desperately thought Naruto. Heruka-chan. We are already on the ground due to the lack of oxygen. The now blue-faced Naruto had barely finished his sentence in hopes to be able to breathe once again. Opening her eyes, Heruka instantly noticed that she in fact back on the ground. Oh, sorry Kaya. Upon apologizing, she released another scream as her gaze came on unnatural shade of blue Naruto appeared to have. Noticing that she was the cause of Naruto's unhealthy shade, she quickly let go of the vice grip around his neck. Oh Kami. I'm so sorry Naruto-kun. With a loud gasp, Naruto filled his lungs with air as the color of his face slowly returned to normal. After taking a few moments to get the oxygen flowing again and hearing a constant female companion apologize, Naruto was back to his normal self. Well, as normal as he can get. Don't worry Heruka-chan, I'm telling you it's fine. He finished with one of his signature foxy smiles. But still, I'm so sorry. Apologized Heruka for the 100th time. She then noticed that the area that they landed seemed kind familiar. She turned around to her left and stared the very same ramen stand that she seen Naruto murder a bowl of ramen. Ah, Naruto-kun, I think I can handle my way home on my own. This place seems familiar, plus I have caused you enough trouble as it is. Rolling his eyes and keeping his foxy smile, Naruto sighed. I said don't worry about it, but I would rather make sure you get home safely, since you know, this place only seems familiar to you. Are you sure? Don't you have any shinobi things to do? Naruto shook his head and looked a bit annoyed. Nope, I won't really have any shinobi business for a while. Before meeting you, both of my sensei took a vacation to go to some sort of convention. Naruto's eyebrows meshed together to form a bit of a mad and jealous expression. I bet they went to some sort of ninjutsu convention to talk about some super awesome ultra powerful database-orific ninjutsu. Heruka sweat dropped at this. Ninjas can take vacation. What kind of conventions is so important to take a vacation and not be able to do here? Higher country border. Large warehouse. Two shinobi stood at the entrance of the warehouse. Both were male as one looked to be an old man and another looked normal if you were to ignore the face mask and one eye then normal. Are you ready to experience VIP access to the underground Ichiraku Paradise convention? I Kakashi. The elder of the two asked with a slightly perverse yet large grin. The man beside him, now known to be our favorite sensei Hada Kakashi, quickly nodded eagerly. Hi Jiraiya-sama. Reaching into his inner pocket located within his vest, Jiraiya pulled out a VIP necklace pass. His grin grew larger as he saw the look in Kakashi's eyes. Here you go Kakashi, your VIP pass for this convention. Jiraiya gently handed the pass to Kakashi, who happily accepted. Arigato Jiraiya-sama. He thanked as a happy tear fell from his visible eye. Putting on the necklace, Kakashi's smile grew and if one could see under his mask, one would be able to see all of his teeth. Yeah, that's how happy he is and more. The doors of the warehouse suddenly began to open for them as a bright light shined from the other side, successfully blinding both males. Now, shall we enter our paradise Kakashi? Jiraiya asked already knowing the answer. Kakashi gave a thumbs up with an eye smile. Hi. I am so happy that I saved all my vacations for this. I better not to forget to get my students some present. Kakashi stopped his train of thought for a moment as he wondered what kind of presents to get his students. I don't think Tsunade-sama would appreciate if I gave Sakura-chan a present from here, and neither would Sakura-chan herself would actually. Sasu-kun is too dead set on his goal to have anything to do with this. I'll just get him some cheap bisexual fan-made Ichiraku Paradise book. What about Naruto? He says he isn't a pervert, but from the things Jiraiya explained to be, he seems to be sort of a closet pervert or a confused pervert. Blah, I'm sure they'd have some kind of fan-made ramen-themed Ichiraku Paradise, somewhere in there. A happy giggle escaped Kakashi's lips. One of my students hates this stuff, another doesn't care, and the last is a confused pervert. That means more Ichiraku for me. Hey Kakashi. You coming or what? Shouted Jiraiya who had entered the door and the bright light shined behind him. Kakashi quickly walked toward Jiraiya and entered the door with him. Hi. I'm coming. With that said, the doors suddenly closed as Kakashi gasped and shed tears of joy to what holy place he had come to. I am so glad that I saved my vacations for this. Streets of Konoha. With Heruka and the orange dream machine Naruto. I think we should be getting back to finding your house. I bet your Otu-san is really worried about you. Naruto commented while placing both of his hands behind his head and formed his hands into a cup formation to relax his head on. You're right, Sanji-chan must be worried sick about me. Agreed Heruka with a nod of her head. Yosh, so let's get going. Naruto gave a cheer as he began to carry Heruka in his arm once again. Hold on. Commanded Heruka, in which Naruto complied with. I think we should travel on foot from now on. Since this place seems familiar, my house shouldn't be too far from here, right? Nodding his head, Naruto amazingly understood. Makes sense, I guess. I could use this opportunity to get to know the area more often so I can avoid getting lost again. Putting on his best grin, Naruto nodded once more. Okay then. Let's start moving. Shouted an excited Naruto. He took a single anxious step and stopped. Turning his head towards Heruka, he gave her an embarrassed grin, followed by an equally embarrassed chuckle. Heruka-chan. Which way do we head exactly? Heruka giggled at his antics. Most likely this way. She pointed to her left. I remember walking past this ramen stand sometime before you saved me. She pointed once again, this time to the ramen stand that was located behind Naruto. Huh? Ramen stand. In a flash Naruto turned around, his mouth completely watering from the very thought of having ramen. His blue eyes scanned the name of the ramen stand. He instantly regretted it. Ichiraku ramen stand, Naruto thought as he sniffled a bit. Heruka raised a confused eyebrow at the slightly crying blonde. "Ano, you okay there, Naruto-kun?" Wiping his nose with his sleeve, Naruto began walking in the direction he had been told to, dragging his feet and his shoulders slumped down. No, I'm fine. Let's get going, Yash, Naruto said depressingly, especially towards the end with the Yash. One day down and only 40 minutes left to go. Naruto finished with a heavy sigh. Heruka simply shrugged as she followed. If you say so. An hour later. The two young teens stop after an hour of walking. They had long since left the shopping district and were now in the nearby located suburban housings. I thought you said this place seemed familiar, Naruto gave a glare towards the female civilian. Heruka sighed in return. It's just now a bit different from what I remembered. An embarrassed smile ran across her face. So hungry must have ramen, groaned Naruto as he laid on his stomach holding his belly. Bed up. What kind of shinobi are you? We've only been walking for an hour or so. I thought any normal shinobis would be in tip-top shape. Naruto could only smirk a bit. That's true, too bad I'm not your average shinobi. Huh? What was that? Questioned Heruka, who only got a shake of a head from Naruto. Oh, nothing, I didn't say anything. Naruto quickly cover up. Putting her hands on her hips, Heruka gave Naruto a stern look. Look, Naruto-kun, the faster we find my house the faster you can eat. I'll make you some ramen myself. A confident grin fell on her lips. Naruto only groaned. Thanks for the offer, but I'd rather have some Ichiraku ramen instead. I'm pretty sure yours would fall in comparison to Ichiraku's ramen. Heruka's right eyebrow began to slightly twitch as her confident grin was replaced with a sort of irritated look. What was that? Are you telling me that you think my ramen is second-rate without even trying it? Heruka may have not been a hardcore ramen fanatic like Naruto, but she was a waitress for her father's ramen stand for years and picked up a lot of skills into making ramen. She wouldn't admit it, but she was very proud of her ramen skills. Like hell she'd let a ramen be dubbed second-rate to any other ramen, besides her dad's of course. Naruto nodded as he shifted to a seated position off of his belly, with his legs crossed and arms folded. Well, not to be mean or anything, but any ramen would be considered second-rate when being compared to Ichiraku's ramen. Naruto ended his rant with a thoughtful look and approving nod. I mean, the way they make the noodles and boil them at just the right temperature is amazing. Their pork ramen is filled with juicy chunks of pork that melts in your mouth. Even the vegetable ramen is amazing, trust me, when a person like me who hates vegetables actually compliments vegetables, you know the vegetables are good. Vegetables. Naruto's mouth began to unconsciously water. Just the sheer thought of explaining Ichiraku ramen made his crazy. Heruka's eyebrow continued to twitch as a vein formed on her forehead. My ramen is not second-rate to anyone's. Especially to this so-called Ichiraku ramen. Hirosaka ramen is the best and I'll prove it to you. Heruka shouted to Naruto, which sort of echoed through the streets. What in Kami's name is going on out here? A middle-aged man asked from his doorstep. He groggily walked out of his house with a large yawn and nothing but his ramen-printed boxers. The man looked around while rubbing the sleep from his eyes. Both teens turned their heads to the man who had suddenly interrupted their argument. There was a moment of silence as the wind blew in a cliché manner. The two teens simply looked at the barely clothed man before all hell broke loose and destroyed alternate Naruto universe number 34235, in which was the universe where Sasuke was the main character. Luckily for us that wasn't this universe. Hey Sanji-chan, what the hell are you, yelled an embarrassed and equally surprised Heruka. Haruka, where have you been? Shouted the main as he ran and glomped his poor daughter with tears freely falling. Hi. Sanji-chan. I'm fine, go put on some pants before you hug me. Heruka demanded while trying to break free from his grasp. Sani released her daughter, but gave her a stern look. Now explain. Where have you been? It was so lonely in the house with just me in it. Tears began to flow from his eyes as he blew his nose onto a napkin. You left your dear old dad alone in a house to go out and hang out with a boy. Now wait. Let me explain. There is a very good reason that I'm with Naruto-kun at the moment. Sanji gasped at that. Oh, you even call him with such an affectionate suffix. At that moment the middle-aged man suddenly pulled out a picture of his wife from who knows where and began lovingly talking to the photo. Oh, honey. Our daughter is growing up. It seems like just yesterday she was that slightly mean and aggressive girl. Heruka could only glare at the choice of words that her father chose to describe her. I am not mean at all. And I am certainly not aggressive. Huffed Heruka with her cheeks angrily puffed and arms tightly crossed around her chest. Sanji ignored her as he seemed to continue talking. Now look at her, she's coming home late and getting boyfriends. She even said his name using the kun suffix. She never uses that, not even with me. The man hugged the picture tightly. I am so jealous of your boyfriend Heruka. He isn't my boyfriend. You'd understand if you'd listen. Gah. Now Heruka was getting frustrated and flushed from both the frustration coming from her dad and embarrassment to how her father was acting in front of Naruto. Speaking of the young blonde child, Heruka looked to her side towards Naruto with a slight glare. Don't you have anything to say about this? You're a part of this also. Naruto could only stare at the two as he chuckled a bit at the man's Ramen printed boxers. Cool boxers. He said with a grin. Heruka's face faltered from his opinion of her father's taste in boxers. I'm not even going to ask. Sanji sat quietly on his recliner in his living room as he stared at the two younger figures in the room. Sitting on a couch across from Sanji sat both Heruka and Naruto, both equally quiet due to the tension within the room. Unable to take the random silence, Heruka opened her mouth and attempted to explain to her father about what in the world had happened last night. Sanji-chan So Heruka-chan, mind telling me where have you been with a boy overnight? Sanji interrupted, successfully stopping his daughter mid-sentence. The man's voice held a stern tone as he awaited for an answer. Heruka swallowed at the tone of voice she had just heard from her father. In all honesty, she had never before seen nor heard her father this serious. Then again, she'd never come home late before and with a boy nonetheless. Well you see she paused, feeling unsure of what to say. Heruka-chan was in trouble and I ended up saving her. Naruto interrupted and saved the young girl from the spotlight. Sanji raised an eyebrow at the boy's explanation before turning his attention to his daughter. Is this true? She nodded in agreement as he continued to answer question. What happened? Are you okay? You're not hurt are you? The adult man asked worriedly. Heruka shook her head. I'm fine, Naruto-kun made sure my wrist is okay. She then raised her hand and revealed a tightly wrapped wrist. You got hurt Sanji questioned quickly. Explain. He demanded. Thinking for a moment at what to say, Heruka's mind flowed back to the last night. It was a bit fuzzy, but at least it was something. I sort of got lost while walking and suddenly a drunk came up to me. Did he do anything to you? Sanji asked seriously. Heruka shook her head, thankfully no. Naruto-kun saved me. She gave a quick glance towards the blonde-haired genin as she said his name. Sanji looked over at Naruto, who gave a foxy grin while scratching the back of his head. But if he saved you, why didn't you come home right away? This time it was Naruto who answered. Actually, Heruka-chan fainted before I could ask her anything. I did not faint, I was tired from the sudden scene and fell asleep. Heruka defended with a huff. Naruto shook his head and while Sanji sweat dropped. Whatever you say Heruka-chan. After she fainted I brought her over to my house. This earned him a dangerous look from Sanji. It was getting late and I could just leave her there. Once I got home with her, I laid her on my bed. At that very moment Sanji interrupted our hero's explanation with tears in his eyes. Oh my precious daughter has already shared a bed with another boy. Hearing those words, Heruka's face turned red from the embarrassment of what her father thought went on. No. Sanji baka. I did no such thing with that pig. Pointing at the blonde, Heruka glared at the boy. A pig? Maybe a fox, but not a pig Naruto answered. That's not the point. Tell Sanji-chan that we did not share a bed. The ramen waitress demanded. Naruto began to think for a moment. She slept on my bed, while I slept on the ground. But it was my bed she used, which I also use on most nights. Going by that logic we did share beds. Naruto finished thinking with a confident answer. But Heruka-chan, we did share a bed with each other. Nani both members of the Hirasaka family shouted. Though younger of the two was beet red from both anger and pure embarrassment. You baka. What in the hell are you saying? She violently questioned and swiftly turned her attention to her father. Don't listen to him Sanji-chan. He's lying and doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Sanji on the other hand took out a picture of his late wife in tears. Oh no. My dear sweet wife. Our little Heruka-chan has shared a bed with other boy. She can no longer get married. He would then point towards Naruto. This young man must now take responsibility. You're not listening. Heruka shouted angrily. Looking at Naruto with twice the anger than before, Naruto baka be honest you slept on the floor right? She asked a bit slowly, giving a bit of warning in each of her words. This earned her a nod from the fox container. Hi, I did sleep on the floor. See? He admits it to not sharing a bed with me. Exclaimed Heruka who exhaled a breath. Unfortunately for her, Naruto opened his mouth. But we did. This time both Sanji and her daughter looked on confused at the boy's answer. You're not making any sense. First you say we shared a bed, then you say you slept on the floor, and you switch back to the bed sharing again. Heruka groaned in frustration at the blonde. Naruto simply gave her one of his signature foxy grins. I did sleep on the floor and we did share a bed. I let you use my bed, didn't I? Hi, Heruka answered slowly. Naruto smiled. I shared my bed for you to use. He finished happily. See, I told you we shared beds. Heruka stayed silent as she took his words in. She had a blank expression on her face as she stared at her savior dumbfounded. Waving a hand in front of her face, Naruto began checking if his newest friend was alight. Oi, Heruka-chan. You still there? Eventually Heruka would slowly nod her head. Soon after, she would gain her speaking ability back, which she would quickly use. Naruto-kun. She called out sweetly, maybe a bit too sweetly. Naruto quickly replied, hi. Heruka took a breath of a pause and calmed herself before shouting, that's not the kind of sharing that we are talking about. Her voice echoed as she screamed at the blonde-haired boy. Naruto tilted his head to the side as he looked at her with a confused expression on his whisker-marked face. Then what kind of sharing are we talking about? How else can you share a bed? A heavy blush of red appeared upon Heruka's face as she could not believe this boy before her had just asked. What kind of question do you think you are asking? Naruto simply continued to give her a confused expression. Heruka grumbled once more as she tried to control her embarrassment. Don't try to play dumb, you exactly know how else to share a bed. Still having a confused expression, Naruto frowned. I'm serious, Heruka-chan. If you just tell me what kind of sharing you are talking about, then maybe I'd be able to do that sort of sharing with you. He replied innocently, not understanding the strength of his words held. The room suddenly went silent. Heruka's face slowly turned into a heated red tint. A tiny bit of tears began to form at the edge of her eyes from the embarrassment she had to endure from this day. Grrr, baka hentai. Shouted the red-tinted teen as she stormed out of the room. Meanwhile, Naruto still had his clueless look on his face. He had held the expression for so long that one might think that any longer his face may look like that forever, but that's not the point. She must be really angry that I didn't share the bed with her. He sighed a few moments after as he began to think to himself. I promise that I'll do this correct kind of bed sharing. Watching the entire scene unfold, Sanji could only sweat drop at the blonde before him. I think he's actually serious about not knowing the bed sharing epidemic. The elder Hirosaki was snapped out of his thoughts by his blonde guest. Oh no, gomenasai about making your daughter cry. Looking down with a frown, Naruto expected to be kicked out of the house for his actions. Instead, Sanji released a tiny chuckle and placed a hand on the wild blonde hair of Naruto. Ha, how could I be mad at the person who saved my precious daughter? He said with much gratitude. Raising his head to meet eyes with the older man, Naruto smiled in return. I was happy to save Heruka-chan. It's all in a day's work for your future Hokage. His enthusiasm and statement earned him a friendly chuckle from Sanji. Oh no. Sanji-chan, Naruto asked a bit hesitantly. Upon hearing the suffix, Sanji couldn't help but smile. He was never one for suffix and actually enjoyed the informal titles attached to his names. I'm starting like this boy even more. Hi, Naruto-kun. I was wondering if you knew what sort of sharing Heruka-chan was talking about, Naruto asked with much hope. Neither Sanji nor Naruto said anything for a few moments. The elder of the two took a moment to take in the words of the young Ramen fanatic. On the other hand, our hero stood there, anxiously waiting for an answer. Of course, for Naruto, as clueless as he is, he did not understand the kind of question he had just asked to the father of a young innocent girl. Sanji blinked for a few moments before breaking the silence with a bright smile. Well, Naruto-kun, the sort of bed sharing that my Heruka-chan means is. Sanji-chan. What in the hell are you about to explain to Naruto-kun? Interrupted a shouting Heruka who had entered the room to hear her father talk about an intimate topic about her. Sanji instantly shut his mouth as he heard his daughter's presence. Naruto on the other hand did not. You see, Sanji-chan was giving me some advice on what you meant by your kind of sharing beds. Hearing his words, the young female teen had to hold down a blush that fought its way to return to her skin. Baka, she sighed to herself while gaining her composure back. Just forget about it already. Her voice held a slight tone of annoyance. A frown appeared on Naruto as he actually wanted to find out what other sort of bed sharing there is. But he would retort, but was quickly interrupted by a loud grumble coming directly from his stomach. Blinking for a second, a casual fox grin appeared on his whiskered face as he sheepishly scratched the back of his head, along with releasing a chuckle. Gomen, I guess I'm a bit hungry now. This earned him a sweat drop from both Hirosaka family members. If you're hungry, then why don't you stay for breakfast? Sanji offered happily with a kind smile. Heruka's eyes suddenly widened at the thought of having Naruto stay over for breakfast. Nani, Baka Sanji. That pig will. Heruka-chan's daydream corner. Here is your ramen, Naruto-kun. Sanji announced as he placed 3 bowls of ramen onto a table. Sitting at the table sat a ramen craving Naruto and a uncharacteristically calm Heruka. Arigato, Sanji-chan. It smells delicious. complimented Naruto after his nose caught a whiff of the many mouth-craving mixtures that could be smelt from the 3 bowls of ramen. A proud smile flashed across the face of Sanji. What are you waiting for? Dig right in. Hi. I did Akamatsu. Naruto quickly broke his chopsticks apart and began digging into his ramen violently and noisily. Both Heruka and her father's eyes widened as they watched a horror. Naruto absolutely murders the bowl of ramen, one by one. And then Naruto-kun Sanji terrifyingly spoke, shouldn't you slow down just a tiny bit? They got no reply from the blonde as he began the final bowl of ramen. Unfortunately for the other two, they had watched a finale on how Naruto devours his final bowl. 2 shrill screams echoed through Konoha as both Heruka and Sanji would never be heard of again. End of Heruka-chan's daydream corner. No. Heruka shouted suddenly. Her sudden scream successfully caught her father off guard. Naruto simply looked at Heruka with a dumbfounded expression, but not surprised due to being used to sudden outburst from a certain pink-haired teammate. Uruno household. Sakura's room. Sitting in her room with Ino, Sakura explained to her childhood friend about the overuse of the "someone is talking about me" sneeze. Ino agreed as they returned to writing their yaoi fanfictions. Hirasaka household. Living room. Quickly getting over his shock, Sanji once again offered Naruto to stay over for dinner. Ahem, anyway, we'd be happy to have you stay over, Naruto-kun. Heruka sprung into action upon hearing her father continue. Ah. But Naruto-kun has a busy schedule with all the missions and ninja-like training he has to do with his sensei, right? She looked at Naruto, hopping. He actually did have something to do. Nonsense, Naruto-kun. If you don't have a good meal then you won't be able to efficiently do any of your ninja missions properly. Sanji continued. Sanji frowned at the young blonde's refusal of staying for breakfast. Please. I'll even cook you up some of our delicious Hirasaka family ramen. He offered once again, this time he added much enthusiasm while announcing their family ramen. No. Inwardly screamed Heruka. Sanji-chan offered our ramen. From what I learned about Naruto-kun, he isn't the type to turn down ramen. We're doomed. Heruka dejectedly lowered her head as she saw her imaginative death once again. I better get ready to come a ton of ramen for the pig, she continued in her mind as she turned to walk towards the kitchen. Oh no, sorry, but I have some instant ramen at home. The blonde surprisingly declined. He smiled sheepishly before continuing. Also, if I eat some homemade ramen right now I'd begin to miss Ichiraku's great ramen even more. He released a tiny sigh as he felt a bit depressed due to missing the Ichiraku family. Day 1 without them has begun. Haruka questioned while her brain processed hearing her saviors decline to their ramen. Wait just a moment. You're telling me that you're passing up some of our delicious homemade ramen, the great Hirasaka family ramen to be exact, for some plain instant ramen, Heruka screamed a bit angrily. Yup. And they're not just any instant ramen. Naruto once again flashed his foxy grin as he spoke. This got Haruka's attention. If he declined some homemade ramen, then those must be some special instant ramen. Heruka questioned herself before speaking her mind, so just what kind of instant ramen is so special to take it over Hirasaka ramen? A sheepish grin replaced Naruto's fox-like grin a moment before he answered, like I said. They're not just any instant ramen, they're ramen I bought on clearance. That means I've got triple the normal amount. A happy tone could easily be found in Naruto's voice as he explained to have not double, but triple the normal amount of instant ramen at home. Nani, Heruka shouted once more, this time neither Sanji nor Naruto was caught off guard from her outburst. That's the reason you refused to have some of our ramen in for free, she questioned and gave a glare towards Naruto as if she demanded answers. But the swift reply, Naruto closed his fate with his next choice of words. Of course. Plus eating another family's ramen would make me miss Ichiraku ramen even more. Unfortunately that was not the smartest choice for Naruto to choose. Ichiraku this, Ichiraku that. That's it. I'll show this ramen pig the power of Hirasaka ramen. A vein appeared on Heruka's forehead due to feeling insulted by having her family ramen passed over for instant ramen of all things. Sanji on the other hand gave the boy an understanding smile. Ah, I guess it's alright. Maybe you could have some other time. We've got a stand opening up, Tomo. How dare you? Heruka interrupted, gritting her teeth. How dare you choose cheap instant ramen over my family's ramen? Naruto frowned a bit and explained once again that he'd miss his favorite ramen stand's ramen twice as much if he would eat some other ramen beside instant ramen. An aura suddenly formed around Heruka as she took Naruto's reason as a personal insult. Ah no, Naruto-kun. She asked in her dangerously sweet tone, why don't you stay over for breakfast? I'll personally make some ramen for you. Normally Naruto would decline once again, but he had no choice as the ramen waitress grabbed Naruto by the collar as both made their way towards the kitchen. Hey. Wait. I didn't even answer you yet. Naruto attempted to reason, but to no avail. Meanwhile Sanji watched on as he saw his daughter's actions. With a small chuckle he shook his head and followed the two young teens, one walking towards the kitchen and the other being dragged to the kitchen. Random time skip. 6.645342 seconds later. As Sanji enters their kitchen, he instantly sees Heruka hard at work with a few ramen ingredients lying in front of her. With her white apron safely wrapped around her waist, she gave off a sort of confident vibe as she began grabbing her utensils. He continued to watch his daughter as she worked her magic in the kitchen. He looked at her daughter's back as she worked. A sudden feeling of sadness entered him as through his eyes an older woman's figure replaced Heruka's. The similarities between the two were so very similar, one would think that Heruka and this other woman was mother, and whenever she's in the kitchen she looks so much like you, Sanji said mournfully. Holding back a tear, the man shook his head in order to snap his thoughts back in happier thoughts. On the side sat our favorite blonde-haired knucklehead. His head face down on the table, a grumble from the belly of this ramen best roared slightly once more as a sign of his quickly growing hunger. "Let me help you, Heruka-chan," offered Sanji as he grabbed an apron and tied the ends around his waist. Heruka did not even bother to turn her eyes towards her father as she began to chop some green onions among other ingredients. "Thanks Sanji-chan, but it will only take me to show Naruto-kun how great our ramen truly is, HMPH. She huffed with much pride and a bit of sass. "You can try as much as you like, but Ichiraku will always be on top." A muffled voice was heard in the direction of the table where the blonde-headed genin sat with his face down on the table in his arms. This caused the two civilians to turn their attention to the blonde. Raising his head with a slightly bored and yet starving expression. "Can't I just have my instant ramen?" HMPH. Was all that he got out of Heruka as she returned to her ramen dish. The only sound that would come from Heruka would be the chopping sounds of her knife hitting the cutting board. Sanji sweat dropped at the two teens while exchanging looks from Heruka to Naruto. A smile then formed at his daughter. "I've never seen her so worked up on ramen before. She has never tried defending our ramen this harshly before either." He turned his attention towards the young fox boy laying his head on their table. His smile continued as he gave his thoughts on the boy. "I've also never seen someone who takes ramen as seriously as he does." He released a small chuckle while shaking his head as he allowed both Heruka and Naruto to continue on. With his head still lazily and hopelessly on the table, the starved Naruto awaited to be served this so-called great Hirasaka ramen. Truth be told, he'd probably prefer to be served instant ramen or even better, Ichiraku ramen. Unfortunately for the blonde, the latter wasn't available at the moment and will not for almost a week. "Great kami of ramen, if I don't get any ramen as soon as possible," Naruto paused as his stomach grumbled once more. "I think I may die." He lastly finished before he drifted into a hallucination. Naruto's daydream corner. "Ah!" the blonde-haired genin shouted as he shot his head up from the table. "Huh?" A confused cry followed as Naruto blinked at his surroundings. He found himself in the same kitchen as he was earlier, the only difference was he was alone. Neither Sanji nor Heruka could be seen anywhere in the kitchen. "Boy. Sanji-san. Heruka-chan. You two still exist." He called out only to be answered by the silence. "They must have left when I dozed off a bit." Naw-Roo-Toe voice suddenly called out, quickly catching the boy's attention. Turning his head towards the sound of the voice, Naruto curiously searched for the source. "Nani? Who's there?" "Sanji-san. Is that you?" The voice called out once more. "Naruto, come here, young one." A bright light suddenly appeared out of nowhere as a dimension hole ripped itself into existence within the Hirasaka kitchen. Epic. Naruto saw the hole appear with his own eyes as he heard the voice continue to call out to him. Feeling confusion take over his mind, he could only say two words to describe what he was feeling at that moment. "Holy sh. Be not afraid, young one. For it is I, the Lord of the Ramen. Sole ruler of the land of Ramen." The mysterious bright light announced. A very strong scent of ramen began to leak through the hole and engulfed itself into Naruto's nose. A heavenly sigh was released upon inhaling the smell. "It smells nothing like any ramen I've ever smelt." The young genin could only sigh once again as he inhaled it once more. "Need ramen now?" he demanded in a hypnotized state as he began to slowly walk towards the dimension rip. As Naruto took each step closer to the hole, the stronger and more mouth-watering the smell became. He could feel the heat coming from the hole, a heat similar to the heat coming from a freshly prepared bowl of ramen. His mouth continued to water as he could almost taste it. He was just a mere inches away from the hole leading to the so-called land of ramen. "Thank you, Ramen Lord." He shouted and jumped right into the hole with his mouth wide open. Without another second, he chomped down the first thing that entered his mouth and took in the taste of sweet cotton and leather. Back to reality. Naruto opened his eyes from his dream state as the taste of cotton and leather entered his taste buds. He looked around confusingly around his area only to find an amused Sanji and a hard-working Heruka on the stove area. Naruto-kun, why are you chewing your sleeve?" asked the elder Hirasaka. Eh? Me waft. Came the muffled end reply of Naruto as he had yet to notice his mouth tightly clamped down onto his orange sleeve. Sanji could only point at Naruto's sleeve and gave a confused smile. Finally Naruto had taken notice of his sleeve and released it from his own mouth. No wonder that ramen tasted like cotton and leather, said the blonde as he relaxed into his seat once more. That was a hell of a dream. The last time I had a dream as weird as that was that mission when I ate those mushrooms that Kakashi told me not to. Naruto gave a small smirk at the small memory. He said it wasn't poisonous, so I don't know why we couldn't eat them. He probably wanted to eat them himself later on. Naruto would suddenly be brought out of his ramblings by a very humble scent of ramen. In a quick motion, Naruto frantically turned his head around in hopes to find a dimension hole somewhere around the room. He didn't find it, thankfully. Raising an eyebrow, Sanji watched his guest shift his eyes and sway his head around as if he was searching for something. Is something the matter, Naruto-kun? Are you looking for something? And no, just checking if a dimension hole appeared somewhere. It was a false alarm. He replied with a smile as the earlier smell of ramen returned. Oh, that's good, I guess, yeah. Sanji could only agree with him. Man, ninjas are sort of weird. At that moment, the same smell entered Sanji's own nose, and a smile grew. It smells like Heruka-chan is about to finish up. I wonder how Naruto-kun here will react to eating Hirasaka's own family recipe ramen. Sanji-kun, is that scent that I smell, is it coming from? He pointed towards the kitchen where Heruka was hard at work with her ramen. Sanji's smile grew and simply gave a small nod to the blonde. He inhaled the scent once again and continued to watch the peach-haired ramen worker do her magic in the kitchen. He released a tiny sigh and mentally admitted that the smell was just as good as Ichiraku's one. He played with his lips as the watering in his mouth grew due to the growing smell. The Hirasaka kitchen. With Heruka. Heruka had just finished seasoning the vegetables and beef that boiled in the pot. Now I just need to add the noodles to the pot, she thought with a smile. Soon afterwards, the young female added the noodles into the pot and began to stir the noodles gently. She looked behind to check on both her father and Naruto. Upon seeing her blonde savior smack his lips due to the watering, Heruka smirked as she knew that her cooking caught the attention of Naruto. Ha! I knew you couldn't hold out for long. You'll see just how great our ramen is, she mentally cheered. As Naruto hungrily watched Heruka cook, his mind drifted from the cooking towards the girl herself. They had met last night but only made normal contact with each other this morning. His young mind began to ponder on his newly acquainted friend but was swiftly interrupted by the sight of Heruka lifting the noodles, giving them a stretch and an unintentional tease to the blonde. He stared at her. His gaze never left her. All that he saw was her. Naruto, for the first time over ramen that was not Ichiraku, was in a daze. Sanji watched his guest go into a daze and mistook that as Naruto staring at his daughter. With a small chuckle to himself, Sanji began his teasing. Fatherly mode enabled. The SSST, hey Naruto-kun, you seem like a nice guy and somewhat smart guy, Sanji quietly called out. Naruto nodded without taking his eyes off of the long ramen noodles. So what do you think of her? Sanji grinned a bit as if he anticipated for Naruto to be caught off guard by his question about this young boy's opinion about his own daughter. A few moments passed before Naruto gave a simple answer. Beautiful. His eyes never left ramen noodles being stretched out of the pot by Heruka. Not expecting that kind of answer, Sanji raised one of his eyebrows and gave a questionable look towards the blonde urchin head. Huh? Heruka raised more ramen from the pot as Naruto constantly stared at the fresh ramen noodles. Just look at her. So long, slender, and sleek. Sanji listened on, completely misunderstanding who or correctly put what Naruto was talking about. I can't wait to eat her, Naruto stated a bit sensually as he licked his lips and felt his mouth water. Sanji had heard about enough but was thrown a curveball by the blonde. That beautiful ramen. I can't wait to eat her. Naruto sighed hungrily. Forgive me Tsuchihaji-san and Ayame-chan. I'm unfaithful towards your ramen. Sanji on the other hand sweat dropped and let out a breath of air. With a weak chuckle he relaxed back into his chair and returned to his own mind. I've got to stop reading so much Icha Paradise. Minutes later. With a content sight, it was finally done. There in all its glory laid a freshly made Hirasaka ramen. Its heated steam rose from the bowl as Heruka smiled at her latest creation. It's complete, and not only that, it's absolutely perfect. Heruka gave herself a pat on the back as she gently carried the steaming hot bowl to the dining table. This may be the greatest bowl one have ever created. She cockily grinned as she laid the bowl of the ramen before her blonde friend. It smells really good, Naruto admitted after a brief moment of silence as he inhaled more of the aroma. I'll admit it also looks as good as Ichiraku's. Another confident grin appeared on Heruka's lips as she placed a pair of chopsticks onto the bowl. The smell is just the beginning. Just wait until you have your first bite. The confident grin never left her face. Now eat up. She motioned her hand to allow Naruto to begin. Naruto released a sigh and picked up the chopsticks. I would rather have Ichiraku's, but I'm hungry and who am I to decline free ramen? He gave a foxy grin and let his stomach take control by breaking the chopsticks into two. I did Akamatsu. Naruto shouted and lifted a wad of noodles with his chopsticks. He could see the steam emitting from the wad wrapped around his chopsticks. Finally, in a switch motion, Naruto placed the noodles into his mouth and had his first taste of Hirosaka ramen. Sanji watching silently with his arms crossed in anticipation. Sure, his pride in his ramen was nowhere near as powerful as his daughter's and especially as powerful as Naruto's, but he was curious in how his family's recipe would stand out. Heruka continued to grin. Her body simply radiated a confidence level of over 9,000. As she watched the blonde place the noodles in his mouth, her mind instantly announced victory. Both Hirosakas watched intently to see the outcome of their ramen. There was a quick silence as the noodles fully entered his mouth until. Wah! Hot! Naruto shouted as his eyes shot wide open. The steam blew out of his mouth as the noodles burned his tongue. Wafter. He breathed out through the heat in his mouth. Both Heruka and Sanji could only sweat drop once again at his antics. Baka Heruka simply said as her father gave Naruto a glass of water which was downed in a few seconds. Whoa. My tongue was on fire. Naruto laughed a bit with a fox-like grin. Just eat the ramen already, but is time blow on it? Huffed a slightly frustrated Heruka. Hi, I will. It smells and looks good, but I still doubt it'll taste as great as Ichiraku's. Naruto expressed with a smug smirk and once again rolled a wad of noodles into his chopsticks. He quickly brought it to his mouth and opened it up to eat it, but swiftly closed it as he felt a heated stare from Heruka. He looked at the noodles on his chopsticks and instantly felt the heat from it. Oh yeah, I forgot. He embarrassingly admitted with a sheepish grin. Both Hirosaka's sweat dropped once more at the blonde's careless antics. With a few blows, the noodles seemed cool enough to eat and Naruto took another shot of experiencing Hirosaka family ramen. He quickly finished the first bite and instantly stopped. This quickly got the attention of his new friends as he stared at the full bowl of ramen. It's amazing. Naruto shouted at the top of his lunges and continued to eat the ramen very sloppily. Unnecessary time skip. 9.42010 seconds later. After the unnecessary time skip, Naruto had finished his bowl and placed the chopsticks down. Upon seeing Naruto's eating pace for the first time in person, Sanji shook his head and snapped out of his daze. My Kami, I have never seen anything simply destroy ramen as quickly as he did. That must have been one of those jutsu that ninjas use a lot, it has to be. Humph. I sure showed him which ramen reigns dominance. Heruka proudly congratulated herself. She had taken our hero's eating rate as a sign of victory and a job well done. Not long after, Heruka would be interrupted by a loud burp from the same blonde which only stroked her victory more. So Naruto-kun, how was it? She asked with her ego. Naruto could only look at the empty bowl in silence and awe. The ramen bowl, which had been filled with ramen just a few moments ago, had been whipped clean. Not a single speck was left on the bowl. He then turned his gaze to the two and gave them a genuine smile. It tasted awesome. The noodles weren't soft from being over-soaked or overcooked. It also wasn't hard from being undercooked. The toppings and seasonings blended in amazingly. It felt like I could taste everything that was added into the ramen in a perfectly good way, of course. Hearing his praise caused Heruka to triumphantly cross her arms and nod her head in approval. Now feeling big-headed, said female began to squeeze more praises and hear her ultimate victory over this so-called Ichiraku. See Naruto-kun, I told you. My family's ramen is the greatest in the world. She smirked and waited for his approval, but it's not the greatest. Naruto shook his head and gave his belly a pat. Your ramen is very good, but it came close to beating Ichiraku's. Sadly, it's just short of beating Tsuchihaji-san's Ichiraku ramen. Don't get me wrong, like I said, it's good, but Ichiraku's is great. Naruto chuckled lightly to himself as he oddly thought of a tiger. Sorry Tsuchihaji-san and Ayame-chan, but I meant every word I said. But have no fear, your ramen is still the greatest. After hearing his words, Heruka's big-headedness deflated as she exploded somewhat. What do you mean close? Hirosaka ramen is the greatest ramen on the planet. She shouted and stuck her tongue out at the source of her anger. If it's so great, then why haven't I heard about it? Naruto defended back with a grin. Us Hirosakas are a humble family and do not want to be in the spotlight. Heruka proudly replied with a strong stance full of pride. Plus I could say the same about the so-called Ichiraku. I haven't heard about them. So they shouldn't be that great. She smugly laughed. Ha! You take that back. Naruto yelled as he got in her face. Humph. Make me ramen piggy, Heruka yelled back, who brought her face closer to Naruto's. I'm not a pig, a fox maybe, but I'm defiantly not a pig. Naruto pushed his face closer to hers in an attempt of winning this argument. From the way you eat your ramen I have my doubts. Heruka pushed her face closer once again. Yeah, well, you're ugly. Naruto retorted and did the same as before. I'm not ugly. I'm a beautiful young teen who is continuing to blossom into an even more beautiful young woman. She shouted in frustration that quickly turned into a quick burst of bliss. Sanji sighed at the two, which soon turned into a smile. Any closer and the both of you would be kissing. He had to hold down a few tears as his voice cracked a bit. Oh my sweet Heruka-chan, so you are lovey-dovey with Naruto-kun. Instantly Heruka blinked and noticed exactly how close their faces were. She could feel his breath against her lips and smell the scent of ramen emitting from him. Kaya. She screamed and slapped Naruto across the face, which sent him flying into the cooking area. With a large blush on her face due to embarrassment, Heruka stormed off into another part of the house. Sanji sighed once more and grabbed the first aid kit located beside their refrigerator. Yep honey, she did inherit not only your looks, but also your strength and attitude. He happily thought and went to check up on Naruto. Thanks for watching this video. If you really enjoy this video, like, subscribe, and comment down below, and turn on that bell notification. Don't forget to support and follow the Naw-Roo-Toe for writing that awesome fanfic, and also make sure to comment on this story, link in the description. See you in the next video. Goodbye.